Good evening, everyone. Today we'll learn about the blessing Scheasse Li called Zarki. That Hashem gives me all of my needs. Scheasse Li called Zarki. This blessing we don't say on Yom Kippur, and we don't say it on Tisha B'Av, because those are the 2 days we don't wear shoes. And this blessing, it says in the Gomor and the Talmud and the Gomor and Brachos that it's talking about shoes, that we thank God that we're putting on shoes. And that goes in the logical order, because yesterday we said, last week we talked about Hamechin Mitzadei Gaver. That's the blessing that's previous to this one. We say that God prepares the steps of man. But in order to take those steps, as you have to have shoes. So that's the idea of blessing for shoes. But there's a much deeper meaning for this. Of course, it's a very amazing thing. If you think about it, that we have shoes and that we can walk. There are people in the world that can't walk. And there's people in the world that they don't walk, they don't have any shoes. Usually people that don't have shoes are usually primitive people. Usually they're very primitive people. They're not interested in anything more than sustaining themselves or their family. And shoes enable a person to go out into the world and to deal with others, to interact with other people. Again, human beings are the only ones that have to put on shoes. There's no other being in the world that has to put on shoes or that are able to put on their own shoes. Even though the humans, sometimes if they want to ride a horse, they put horse shoes on the horse to last them long. But they're naturally, a horse and other animals, they don't need shoes. Human beings, though, do need shoes. Naturally, the way they are is not the way they're supposed to be. God created man in order to improve the world, and one of the ways we improve the world is by making shoes. But it's even deeper than that. There are 4 levels of creation. There's what's called domem, mineral. There's the plant world, tzomeach. There's the animal world, which is called chai. Now, each one of these worlds is a totally different dimension than the dimension below it. Minerals have no power of movement whatsoever. They have no consciousness whatsoever. They don't react. The plants, on the other hand, they do move. They move closer to the sun. They grow. They react to where the sun is. If you go and look in the flowers in the morning, they're pointed in a different direction than they are in the evening, because they follow the direction of the sun. And flowers also, they react to music, etc. But animals have even more power of mobility than plants do. Plants are attached to the ground. They can't leave where they are attached to. And animals, on the other hand, can be free from the ground. They're not attached to where they are. And of course, we know that animals react to things. Animals have a certain degree of intelligence. Animals can be trained to count, to do. Horses can be trained. Other animals are easier to train. Others are harder to be trained. But nevertheless, animals have intelligence. But nevertheless, animals are still a totally different level of consciousness than a human being is. It's a totally different level. And even though there are those that, of course, they want to say that humans and animals are the same, and maybe humans or plants are the same. I've never heard anybody like that. But the vegans basically say that the animals and the humans are somehow or other on the same level. In some way, this is true in relation to plants and in relation to minerals. They certainly are on a different dimension. But humans, in fact, are a different dimension than plants and minerals and even animals, because humans have the ability to speak. And because of this ability to speak, they can change other people's minds. People can actually change their minds. They can be convinced intellectually to do things that they normally wouldn't have done. They can improve themselves. They can reach to a totally higher level of being. In other words, to leave the animal level and to elevate themselves into what we call the human level. Human level means that we can appreciate, and we can appreciate even the worst situations. We can make the best out of the worst situation. We can find the hidden treasures that normal human perception can't conceive of. And that's what a human being is. And so that we make shoes from animal skins shows that we have the ability to utilize all the three levels that are below us in order to come to this level, to improve ourselves, to improve the world around us, to make it a better world. The animals can't make the world a better world. They live for themselves totally. A human being can live to make the world a more, if you want to call it, a meaningful world. And even higher than that, they can even bring blessing into the world. And that's the idea of the Jewish people, is not only to bring meaning into the world, but to bring godliness into the world. To show that everything in the world has hidden treasure in it. Everything has hidden meaning. And we're not talking about hidden necessarily monetary treasure. Sometimes making money is not equivalent at all with a good life. As we all know too well, these people who, we've talked about it a lot of times, who win the lottery, millions, tens of millions, the more money that they win, hundreds of millions of dollars, the more money they win, usually the more tragedy ensues. So the idea of man then is to utilize everything in the world, to elevate everything in the world, to put meaning in everything that there is in the world. And that is signified by the fact that he can take animal skin and put it on the lowest part of his body, namely on his feet, under his feet. And this shows that everything is under the rulership of man. That's what God gave the blessing to Adam, and that he should rule over the world, the chivshua, that he should conquer the world, means that he should conquer the world, that he should utilize everything for its ultimate purpose. So that's really what this blessing is talking about. Scheasse Li. It's saying that God really provides everything that we need. And it's interesting because this blessing is in the past. Scheasse, that he already made. Everything that I need is already prepared for me from the past. It's already there. The difficulty is I have to do the right thing in order to receive it. I have to have the right attitude. And that again is the whole purpose of the shoes. The shoes mean the person goes out of himself and that he's willing to conquer the world, to use the world in a proper way so that he can find the treasure that's hidden inside of the world. And often this treasure has nothing to do with riches or success. Professor Viktor Frankl, he made once a test, a survey, and he discovered that the prisoners that were in San Quentin, that a lot of them, the meaning rate, the amount of people that had discovered meaning in their lives in San Quentin, that they realized that what they had done was wrong. They took responsibility for their actions instead of the current idea of criminology, that you try to excuse everybody and say that no one is really responsible for what he did. Everyone is a product of their environment. They're a product of their chemical imbalances. They're a product of their past, of their Oedipus complex, of the social pressures. But Viktor Frankl pointed out, Professor Viktor Frankl, that one of the greatest gifts you can give to a person is a feeling of guilt. Guilt means that you're responsible, that a person feels responsible for his actions, because by saying that the person was not under his own control, it seems to imply that the person was no more than an animal, or maybe even a plant. That the person simply could not have control. He couldn't have gotten outside of the forces that were pushing him to do whatever crime that he did. In other words, the person stopped being a person, and that he's not a person. On the other end, if you say to a person, a criminal, that in fact he's responsible for what he did, and therefore he should feel guilty, as this guilt can bring meaning. That suddenly a person can realize that if he would have been attached to something more meaningful, then he would not have done what he did. He accepts responsibility and decides that he wants to change himself. He wants to control from now on, to control from now on his feelings and his emotions, etc. When a person does that, so he can find meaning, that's the hidden treasure that we're talking about. That's what it means that Hashem prepares for us all of our needs. On the other hand, he made the same survey in one of the Ivy League universities, Harvard, I think, and he found that the rate of people that were lacking meaning in their lives and the desire of people to commit suicide, to that degree, reached the boredom and the meaninglessness, was much, much higher than the people in San Quentin. In other words, success is not necessarily commensurate with meaning. Success and power is not necessarily on the same level as blessing and meaning. So that sometimes can be the blessing that's waiting for us. That's what it means, Scheasse Li called Zarki. But on the other hand, the Lubavitcher Rebbe stressed many times that everyone is supposed to be rich. Everyone is supposed to be rich. And the idea of Mashiach, the coming of the Mashiach, is that everyone will be rich both spiritually and physically. And not only the Jews, but everyone in the world. There certainly is enough resources to make everybody, give everybody exactly what they need and even more. In other words, that's what it means that Hashem Scheasse Li called Zarki. Everything that I need is already waiting for me. And in the beliefs of Judaism is that from Rosh Hashanah, at the beginning of the year, that God sets everything that we need, all of our needs and all of our parnasa, our income, is already set from Rosh Hashanah, and a person cannot earn even 1 penny more than what is set for him. But on the other hand, it can be that a person can not receive the blessing that's waiting for him if you don't have the proper attitude. And the proper attitude revolves exactly around this. Revolves around the knowledge that we're not alone, and that in fact God is the King of the universe. We say it in the beginning of the blessing, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, that you're the King of the world, and you provide everything. You've already provided everything that I need. Scheasse Li, that you've given to me, called Zarki. This is not a general blessing like many of the other blessings that we've had up to now, that God does these things. He opens the eyes of the blind, he releases the bound, he straightens up the bent, he dresses the naked. None of them talk about what he did for me. The closest we've gotten up to that was the previous blessing where it said, Mechin mitzadei gover, that God prepares the steps of man. Now it's talking about more individual, but this blessing is talking about me, Scheasse Li, that God, you already made in the past, you've already given for me everything that I need. I just have to have the proper attitude, I have to make the proper vessel, I have to open up the proper doors, make the proper, I want to call it pipelines, that this blessing should come to me. One of the ways of doing this is by trusting in God and realizing that really everything is waiting for me, and therefore having a happy and a pleasant attitude toward everything that happens. I just read a story about a man that was a chassid, and he had been through the Holocaust. It was he had been in Germany, he went through the Holocaust, they put him into Poland, and then he got out of the Holocaust, and when he escaped, he went to, he ran to Russian, because he was originally a Russian citizen, and they accused him of being a spy, and they put him into a concentration camp in Russia. Meanwhile, he had lost all of his family, his wife, his children, everyone that he had. Of course, he lost all of his money, lost everything that he had worked for all of his life, and he had suffered terribly. And in the end, he said, well, I want you to know, after he told all these amazing tragedies and travesties that occurred to him, so he said, I want you to know that I've never had really one bad day in my life. He said, I've had a lot of days that I didn't understand, but I never had a bad day. In other words, a person like this realizes that we are creations, and for somehow or other, whatever God does to us is always the best. Or maybe you can say even more, God never does anything to us. He always does everything for us. And like this man in our story, a lot of times we don't understand it. And perhaps we can't understand it. In fact, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said that when Mashiach comes, he's going to have a lot of explaining to do. to the people that went through all the Holocausts and the terrible tragedies and the inquisitions, pogroms that the Jews went through. But it will be explained somehow or other. Nevertheless, Scheasse Li called Zarki, that everything that we need is given to us. It's already waiting there, ready for us. But we just have to have the proper attitude in order to get it. So I'll tell you a story. There was once a German Jew. German Jews, if you know, I mean, you people are from Germany. I don't want to say anything bad about you, but German Jews are very, how do you say, very, everything is balanced. Everything is very balanced and just and logical, understandable. And nothing is too much of this or too much of that. Everything is very, how do you say, balanced. And with this German Jew, he was a religious person, a rich man, and it happened to be that he got stuck in some town right before night set. In those days, you couldn't travel in the night, so he went to a small hotel, if you could call it that was owned by a Jew. He saw a mezuzah on the door. This man, the owner, saw a rich person come in. He thought, oh, now I can make a little bit of money. He said, I can give you the presidential suite. The presidential suite basically was just a room with a bed in it, but it was the room was painted and there was no paint chipping off of the walls. And it had a little a basin there where you could wash yourself. I'll give you the presidential suite. And he said, it'll cost you 3 rubles. He said, 100%, no problem, 3 rubles. He got settled in the room. He prayed the evening prayer. And just as he was about to lay down to sleep, a knock on the door. The man said, I'm sorry, I have to move you to the second room. I won't charge you any money. And you can go to the second room with no cost whatsoever. He said, it's no problem. I don't care. I didn't need this room. I can go to the room. He's apologizing all the time. He's carrying this man's the bags with him, take him to the next room. The next room was almost the same, was a little bit smaller. The paint was peeling off a little bit, but he didn't care. He said, can I ask you why? He said, the Rebbe of Tolna is coming. The Rebbe of Tolna is coming to my. I said, okay. This was a German Jew. He didn't understand what this Rebbe is and things like this. A Jew is a good person. Every Jew is holy. But he got a holy Rebbe. What does this mean? There's people who are geniuses. They're intelligent. You must respect them. But the idea of a person, the holy Rebbe, what's this holy? God is holy. The temple is holy. Rebbe is holy. So he thinks to himself, I want to see what this is. So he sort of stands back. He hears that somebody dragging up this big chair up the steps. And they put the chair in the center of the room where he was, the so-called presidential suite. And they brush the room, they clean the room off. His wife goes in, she's all dressed like in Shabbos garments, and he also. And suddenly they hear the door opening up, and he says, oh, it's the Rebbe, the holy Rebbe of Tolna is coming. So the Rebbe comes up the stairs, he has a helper with him. The Rebbe is dressed in this fine silk coat with a big fur collar. He's got a big hat made of fur and a fine a walking cane with a golden top. And he has a helper that's walking after him. And the Rebbe, they tell the Rebbe to go in. He sits on the chair. They close the door. Meanwhile, this German Jew is watching the whole thing. And he doesn't really understand what's going on, but it's very interesting. Let's see what happens. So he sees the owner of the place knocks on the door that he himself just closed. He just closed the door. And the Rebbe is sitting in there, knocks on the door, no answer. Knocks on the door, no answer. Knocks on the door. All of a sudden, the door opens. The helper says, the Rebbe says, you can come in. The man comes in with his wife. His wife is standing by the entrance of the door. Holy Rebbe, I want a blessing. I don't have any children. We need parnasa. We need a livelihood. This little building that we have is very small. We can't. But the main thing, I want a blessing for children. The Rebbe says, 20,000 gulden. 2,000 gold coins. His wife lets out a little shriek. Whee! He says, Rebbe, that's all the money I have. We've saved this money for 20 years. Maybe 10,000. Rebbe says, I'm sorry, I can't help you. He says, listen, Rebbe, please. Maybe 15,000. Leave a little something for me. Rebbe says, okay, I see we have I'm sorry, we have to finish the meeting. He says, okay, Rebbe. Meanwhile, this German Jew is thinking, that man is a highway robber. What is this? A poor man works his whole life. He's taking all of his money for him. What type of, and this guy believes it. He believes in it. I don't believe, but he doesn't want to break in. He realizes no matter what he says is not going to help anyway. The man says, just 1 minute, Rebbe, please. He runs down. They hear some safe opening up. He runs up with the money. The Rebbe points to his helper. He gives it to the helper. The helper pulls over the table, starts counting the money. And he's counting. And he turns to the Rebbe, says, 20,000. The Rebbe says, yes, you will be blessed with children. You will be blessed with riches. Thank you, Rebbe. Thank you so much. Thank you. We're so grateful. He backs out. The lady backs out. This German Jew is so shaken up by what he sees. He says, I can't believe it. This man is a thief. He took away this man's, and for what? What did he give him back? Nothing. So the German Jew goes downstairs and he wants to smoke a cigarette just to calm down a little bit. He's standing over by the side of the exit door, the back door. He went through the back door. Suddenly he hears footsteps come down, and it's the Rebbe walking with his helper. The Rebbe says to his helper, look at this. This place is really not planned at all. Look at the foundations are really strong. You could have built a building 3 stories high. There could be 50 rooms at least. And look at the big area that he has over this totally unused. That could have been for carriages, could have been a tennis court, could have been even a swimming pool. Look what he's built over here. Totally mismanagement. The German Jew is thinking, but this man is a businessman. He's not no Rebbe. This is not a holy person. What's going on? Anyway, that's it. The Rebbe leaves, gets in his carriage, drives away. The German Jew stays there the night. In the morning, he wakes up and he leaves. 5 years later, the German Jew happens to be driving by the same place, the same town, and he sees the town is a little bit changed. He stops, he sees there's this big buildings, nice big buildings and everything. He's stopping, scratching his head. All of a sudden he hears somebody yelling, hello, hello, hello. He looks and he sees someone standing in front of this big, beautiful building, yelling hello, and a little child comes running over, says, my father wants to talk to you. Your father wants to talk to me. How does he know me? He comes over, says, you're the German Jew that was here 5 years ago, right? He says, yes. He says, yes, right. Who are you? He says, remember, I'm the owner of the place. Remember that night that Talmud Rebbe came? What a blessing that was. What an amazing thing. He says, 1 second, I want to understand. You're the same person. What is this? He says, this is my hotel. Look, it's 3 stories high. We have 50 rooms. In the back, there's places for the carriages. There's a tennis court. We have even a swimming pool. It's wonderful. Look at opposite me. These are all my buildings. Look at my children. 5 beautiful children I have here. Twins. He thinks, wow, I really made a mistake about this Rebbe. He says, tell me, is this Talmud Rebbe still alive? Yes. Can I go and see him? Yeah, lives not far away from here. He's just maybe a half an hour drive. Drives the half an hour, comes to the house of the Talmud Rebbe. Can I have an appointment? Says, yes, you can. They take him into the Talmud Rebbe. Says, Rebbe, I want to ask you a question. He says, you were the German Jew 5 years ago that was there. Yes, that's right. That was me. He said, you're probably wondering what happened. He said, yeah, I am wondering. You gave that man a blessing. You had to take all of his money away. Why did you have to take all? If you have the power to give a blessing, just give him a blessing. What did you have to take away his money for? Why? The man said, yes, of course, I had a power to give a blessing. Of course. I saw that this was waiting for this man was waiting untold riches. But he had to make a vessel for these riches. He had to really believe in God. Now what was he believing? Who's the source of all blessings? Now what did he believe in? He believed in his money. His money was his comfort. His money was his strength. His money was his security. His money was his past. His money was his future. His money was his whole life. And really, it's supposed to be that God is your person's comfort. God is his whole being, his future, his past. That's what his whole life is. As soon as he opened up, the only way to make this person open up, I could tell him that it would never help. The only way to really make him open up is by taking everything he had away, and that opened up the vessel that he could accept the blessing that was made, that was already waiting for him. And so it is with us in life. When things happen to us that are not according to the way we want, we should understand that if we accept that everything that Hashem does is for us and not to us, then that opens up little by little our vessel, and you can see, you'll be able to see a tremendous change in your own personal life. The things will less grate on our nerves, make us aggravated, make us depressed, make us angry, because we'll realize that everything that's happening is really not in our control. And the small things that are in our control, those things are in control, we have to pray to Hashem that we'll do those things in the proper way. And that's also a gift, that we can have anything that's in our control. So also Li called Zarki means don't try to be a control freak. Hashem is the controller of the world, that's what we said just 4 or 5 words earlier. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, that he's the king of the universe. If there's a king of the universe, means that he really is the king of the universe, and he's doing everything for our good. But sometimes, in order to accept this good, is we have to leave our old boundaries and realize that all of our needs are not supplied by us, but they're supplied by God, and we just have to be partners with God. Well, we can see clearly that success does not depend on intelligence, and success does not depend on hard work. Bill Gates, that has $100 billion, certainly did not work 100 times harder and is not 100 times smarter than somebody that only has $1 billion. Certainly not. But the fact of the matter is, we have to realize that also our intelligence and also our hard work, these are all blessings from God. And that's what we're making the blessing on Scheasse Li called Zarki about the shoes. That the shoes themselves are really a blessing from God. That's why we're really bringing God into this thing. Even though we're doing everything by the shoes, but really the fact is, when we put on shoes, we can go and work, but this is really a blessing from God. This is an amazing thing. We should not take it for granted. This will make us happier. This will make us happier people. Yes. And this brings us all now to the biggest blessing of all, which is the Mashiach. If you look at the end of the book of the Rambam, the Moshe ben Maimon, as he assures us that the end of this terrible confusion situation that we're in will be totally good. That there is going to be a human being who's going to be just like Moses, just going to be exactly like King David. And Moses he'll be because he'll be a great leader, and he'll be one that'll stress the Torah. David he'll be because he will be a tremendously devoted person that will make songs out of even the worst tragedies. But even more, the Mashiach is going to be something that's never been in the history of the world, and that's not only for the Jews, but for all of mankind. That all of mankind will feel the goodness of the creator of the universe and the closeness of the creator of the universe, to the point where all mankind will only pray to the creator of the universe. And when that happens, they will receive blessings directly from the creator of the universe. And it's a totally different blessing if one receives directly from the creator of the universe than if he receives from some star or a person or an angel or from his own hard work or for his own self. Because when God does give money, does give money and success, it's what's called in Judaism, there's a bracha b'kaspo, there's a blessing in the money. Blessing means that the money goes further. It goes further and it goes for good causes, good reasons. The money is different money. Like there's a story that goes like this, that this was told to me by one of my teachers, that he said he heard a story from one of his teachers that that the Hasidim would sit up all Thursday night and they would learn a book called Likutei Torah. What does God do? God already knows what's written in Likutei Torah. Because God Thursday night sits up and tries to find a holy dollar for a teacher of children. A holy dollar for a teacher of children, a Torah teacher for young children. What does it mean? So he said he heard that and he never understood what it meant. Never understood what it meant. What does it mean? A holy dollar, pruta kadosha, a holy dollar for a teacher of children. Malamed tinokos. What does it mean? So he said one day he heard a story that explained it to him. There was a great tzaddik and his name was Zushi Manipoli. Zusha Manipoli would wander from town to town wherever he was needed spiritually. And he would sit in a synagogue and he would learn. And someone would always notice him. One of the people in the congregation would notice him. And they would bring him food. They would bring him food. And so it was, he would sit in this shul and he would learn Torah day and night without stopping. Very difficult thing. Try it sometime. And someone would bring him food. Well, it so happened that this person was sick. The person that brought him food was sick. And passed 1 day, 2 days, and nobody brought him food. Finally, on the third day, when he thought that the end was near, so he said, God, Zusha is hungry. Said, no, sorry, this is Zusha Vanipoli. Did I say Zusha Vanipoli? Yes, Zusha Vanipoli. Zusha Vanipoli said, Zusha is hungry. I'm hungry. Zusha is hungry. And God made a miracle, and man, the same manna that fell from heaven for the Jews in the desert, fell into his mouth. And he ate the man, and that kept him alive. So the question can be asked, why did God have to do such a miracle like that? Why did he have to do a miracle at all? Somebody else could have noticed him, just the same way that the first person noticed him. Someone else could have noticed him and brought him food. Why did God have to do a miracle? So the answer is that no one in the town deserved to bring him food. No one in the town had the merits to bring Zusha food. In other words, not all food is the same food. Not all dollars are the same dollars. A person that earns $1 honestly, truly honestly, is that dollar has a big blessing in it. And that's what it means, Scheasse Li called Zarki. That God already has prepared for us everything that we need. And the question is, if we make a proper vessel in order to receive it. So that should be our message for today. A comforting message to know that God has everything that we need is already prepared for us. Everything we need. And the greatest thing that we really need is the coming of the Mashiach, and that's also prepared for us. The Rambam, Maimonides, explains that in those days, there won't be any need, there won't be any famine, there won't be any wars, there won't be any distress, no frustration. All of the people in the world will be able to serve God. That's what everybody will be thinking about, because everyone will realize that we're creations. Amazingly enough, God is really creating us. And when that happens, then all the people will come to the Jews, because the Jews have a better sense of God than anyone else. And then the essence of the world, there'll be peace, and there'll be brotherhood and harmony in the whole world. And this is already waiting for us. Scheasse Li called Zarki. It's waiting. All we have to do is what we're supposed to. Live our lives according to the Torah, and live our lives according to our own conscience. Live our lives according to what we've accepted, received from our teachers. And when we do that, and do it in a kind way, Darki Noam, Darki Sholem, in a pleasant way, and in a peaceful way, as that makes the vessel that we can receive everything that Hashem has given us, Scheasse Li called Zarki, and is waiting for us. So have a good week, everyone. That God should give us all that we need, and we should be revealed by God everything that we need now, and with Mashiach now. And that when that happens, then it'll be a very happy and a blessed world. But nevertheless, we will still meet next week on Sunday. God bless you all. Have a good week.
Amen. Thank you very much. Can I have a question?
Yes.
So why should we pursue something? Why should we pursue our talents? If everything is given from Hashem, so where's the balance between our own efforts? Why should we invest?
So everything is given. Everything is given from Hashem. Everything is waiting for us, but we have to make the proper vessel in order to do it. But we shouldn't think that it's our efforts that are creating the results. The results are in the hands of God. The results are already waiting for us from God. But our job is we have to make the proper vessel. Not an easy thing to do. Not an easy thing to do. Just to give a small example, the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, said many times that science is a very, very beneficial thing. It's a very good thing, right? Science does not provide what the truth is, but science does provide what is practicality, what works. If somebody can come up with something better, then that new idea becomes what's the scientific fact, if you want to call it. If somebody comes up with a better idea than that, then the old idea is also gone. But nevertheless, the whole idea is progress and improving the world for people. We see how much medicine, for instance, has lengthened the lives of people. Lengthened the lives of people. This was by means of people's actions, by means of people's work, hard work. Took tremendously hard work to do. But nevertheless, on the other hand, what was the results of that were things that were already waiting. Health was a thing that already existed before these medicines and these treatments existed. In fact, even more, it says in the beginning of creation that if man would not have eaten from the tree of knowledge, he would have lived forever, and he would have been healthy the whole time. So all that medicine does is to try to fix up what's done. The same thing we can ask about prayer. Here, these classes are all about prayer. You can ask the same question: why do you have to pray? If everything is already waiting for me, so why should I have to pray? So the answer is no. It's true. It's everything is waiting, but God wants us to work for it. Asher bora Elokim lasot. It says that God created everything. Lasot means to work and to fix. Even Adam, the first man, that he was in Gan Eden, he was in heaven, said that God put him into the Gan Eden la'avda u'lashamra, to work on it and to protect it. So in other words, the whole essence of what man is to work. That's the whole purpose of man, the whole being of man. But on the other hand, you have to know that your work is never futile. If a pure person works and the results are already waiting for him, and if the results are not what he wanted, but the results are always what he needed. And we have to realize that sometimes what seems to be failure can be the best thing. Like I said, the story how we started the class in the beginning, that these people that were sitting in San Quentin in the prison, that because of that, they had reached the lowest of the lower. They were lower than an animal. But because of this, they reached to a certain degree of meaning in their lives. They reached something that a normal person on the streets doesn't get. If you talk to people that were addicts, drug addicts, alcoholics, etc., and they got out of it, they'll say that just the feeling that they defeated the devil was the serpent was a feeling that's incomprehensible. They feel suddenly human, that they're human. So sometimes that's what's waiting for us. That's what's waiting for us. But it all depends on work. It all depends on hard work. Sitting back, and that's one of the bad things that can come from believing in God, misunderstandings from both sides. One side it can become that believing in God can make a person a fanatic. It can make him a person a fanatic, that he can't stand to listen to any other opinions, and he's willing even to kill other people because of it. We see the what do they call it now, the extreme Islam today, and it used to be with Christianity. It used to be they couldn't stand anybody that was opposite them. It was just. On the other hand, there's complacency. God will do everything, right? Not to do anything. Both of them are wrong. Both of them are certainly wrong. What is supposed to be? There has to be a balance. That balance is a problem. That's why we have friends. That's why we have rabbis. That's why we have books, right? In order to try to solve this problem. And it could be that a person never really solves it 100% in his life, but he has to believe that it's true. Like Viktor Frankl writes, it's possible that a person can be half sure, half certain, and wholehearted at the same time. But everything depends on work. Everything depends on what we do, our work. But it can't be too much work, and it can't be overdoing things, right? Sometimes overdoing things, thinking that you have to do too much, can wreck up our blessing. There's a story with Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Raditchev, that once one of his followers was running. He ran by. He didn't even say good morning to his rabbi. Didn't say, ran past him. And he yelled to him, the rabbi yelled to him, where are you running? He said, Parnasa, it's my livelihood, my money, I'm running to make money. So he yelled to him, how do you know the money is in that direction? Maybe the money is in the opposite direction. How do you know where the money is waiting for you? Because sometimes a person can do too much. He can overdo it. He can sink too much into his business, into his work, to the point where even if he does make a lot of money, but he loses his whole life. He loses his whole personality. He loses his whole being. He thinks that the money is his whole life. Like the story that we had, I just told you about the Rebbe of Tolna, right? These people thought that their money was God. It was everything that they had. So there has to be this balance all the time between what God wants from us and what God will provide on his own. There has to be belief. We have to be belief. There has to be trust in God. That's the basis of everything. But on the other hand, part of the basis is that we have an obligation to God to use all of our potential. If our potential is to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, then we have to use it. Good?
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. I hope it answers the question. Any other questions for any other people? By the way, I wanted to say something. I happened to be looking through my backlogs or whatever it's called in the internet, and I came to this thing where it said there were actually comments on this program, and I had never seen them before. So people wrote nice comments also, which made me feel pretty good. And I had not seen them. I just saw them today because I was looking for something else totally, and I just happened to see 20 facets of happiness, something like notes or something. I don't remember what it was called. And people said, "Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. My davening is different," etc. So I don't know exactly how I can get those personally, but if anybody wants to write me an email telling me about how nice the program is, I'd appreciate it. It makes me feel good. Even if you don't mean it, you can send me one because it makes me feel good to read it. And it is, I'll tell you, give me my email. My email is very simple. It is Rav Bolton, RAVBOLTON, Rav Bolton, @gmail.com. RAV, like victory, BOLTON, @gmail.com. You can write to me about anything that you want to. Wonderful. So any more questions? Have a good week, everyone. God bless you all, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you very much. All the best. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.